Hello everyone, it's Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. Thank you for joining me for the Thursday tip of the week. I am really excited. I don't know if this is a tip, a technique, but I think I'm calling it a tip because basically what I want to show you guys is use this designer paper. I want to show you a different way of using it. It doesn't involve a card, but I want to show you a way to make a beautiful gift bag. And what it does is it shows off this beautiful designer series paper. In particular, it shows off both sides of this beautiful designer series paper. And the tip that I'm offering you tonight is don't be like me. Don't be afraid to use your designer paper. Whether you're using it on cards, gift boxes, little notebooks that you make, or these gorgeous gift bags that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. Don't be afraid to use your designer series paper. I always buy it with the best of intention of using it. I try to use as much as I can in my classes, but then it seems like I'm afraid to cut into the big pieces or use the big pieces. And so, like I said, my tip is don't be afraid to use this designer series paper. I'm going to work along with you and try to use some of mine up. But I want to just show you a really quick and easy way to make a gift bag using 2 sheets of paper. And I've got 2 different sizes of this gift bag. One is using 2 sheets of 12 by 12 designer series paper, and one is using 2 sheets of 6 by 6 designer series paper. So the beautiful part of this is if you work it right, there's very little cutting or planning that you need to do ahead of time. And you're able to whip these gift bags out almost on a moment's notice as you need them. So let me start by showing you the two different sizes of the gift bags. This is one made using the 12 by 12 designer series paper. And this is actually from the Magic in the Night designer series paper. And it's a black and white paper that you can color on if you wanted to. I left this all black and white and let the only color be the red ribbon that I have for the handle. And this bag made ends up measuring about 7 inches tall, 6 inches wide. Get confused on my depths and that sort of thing, and about 3 inches deep. So it's a great sized bag for holding a variety of different things. If you wanted to give somebody some wet ones, those pretty much fit very nicely in the bag. Another thing that I like to put in mine when I'm setting them up is just some hand lotion, a little bit of tissue paper and stuff. Add a couple pieces of chocolate, maybe some cards, and you can have a real nice gift bag that way as well. So that's just another item that fits real easily. You could also gift rhinestones. They fit very nicely in there. Stamp sets tend to be a little bit too big. I've just got my chamois case here, a little bit tall, but with some tissue paper, those would fit just perfectly too. So there's a lot of things that you can put in here and use as gifts. So again, this is the bag that's made out of 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper, and you can see how I was able to use both sides of the paper because you do end up folding a portion of it down. And then I've got a couple little bags here that I made using the 6 by 6 pieces of paper. And this one I opted not to put any closure on it. But again, exactly the same process for making the bags. This one I just punched some holes and put a ribbon through both sides in order to close the bag. This one I left open at the top. So lots of different ways, and you can add labels and die cuts and things like that to decorate the bags. But mostly tonight I wanted to show you how to make the bag, and I'm going to walk you through that process right now. So if you want to get a piece of paper and write some notes down, feel free to do that. I'm going to give you the measurements using a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and I want to just make sure I pretty much have this on my camera. So this is a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, And what you're going to do is score it 3 inches on 3 sides of the paper, and then 2 inches on what will end up being the top of the bag. So what you really need to be aware of is if you have a directional paper, make sure that your 2 inches is on the right direction that you want to be able to fold down. Or if you want the outside of your bag to be a certain direction, make sure that on both pieces of paper you're putting your 2-inch mark at the right spot. So again, this is sheet number 1. You've scored it at 3 inches, 3 inches, and 3 inches with 2 inches going across the top. You will then cut this sheet right up to the score line. So you're not cutting the square out, you're just cutting it up to the score line. And if you want to take a picture of this, feel free to do it. I do have tape going across here. Now I used tear and tape because I wanted you to be able to see where I had my adhesive. But for that top fold, using any of the Stampin' Seal, or if you're a liquid glue person, that will work just fine as well. So you've got your tape here, and I like to run 2 pieces so that when I fold this over, it really presses down. And then on the back side of this piece of paper, I've also got tape, my adhesive running on this flap, and this part of the flap. So go ahead, take a picture if you want to do that, or a screenshot. And then I'll flip it back over and you can take a screenshot of that as well. I find that sometimes that helps. All right, so that's sheet 1 of your 12 by 12 paper. And then here is sheet number 2. Again, I accidentally, when I was cutting my corners, I snagged it there. You don't want to do that. But again, you're going to score it 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches, and 2 inches. And then you're going to actually cut on the second sheet these 2 corners out. So on the first sheet, we just made flaps. On this sheet, you're cutting the corners out all together. And again, you're going to run some tape up here so that you can fold your flap down, and then some tape here because this is going to become the bottom of the bag. So go ahead, take a picture of sheet number 2 so that you've got that and can repeat this bag. And then what I'm going to do is just walk you through the process. I have actually picked out a couple of pieces of paper. This is from the gorgeous Sand and Sea Designer Series paper. It's in the January to June mini catalog. And I am going to actually use this side with the ombre effect. And I'm going to have my yellow be at the top so that when I fold it over, I'm folding my sand, or the starfish, onto the pinker tones of this paper. So I'm going to take my Simply Scored tool, and again, I want this to be my top, so this is going to be the 2-inch score line, and then the other 3 sides will be my 3-inch score line. And because I'm going to want it to fold over this way, I am going to do my scoring on the back side so that we're doing the, no, I'm going to do it on this side. Do it on this side because I want to fold the mountain fold. Confuse myself here. So I'm just going to use my scoring tool and do a 2-inch score line, and then my 3-inch, and 3-inch. And I have mass produced these bags before, and what I will tell you is when you're doing that, it's a lot easier to do each step all at once instead of making each bag individually, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to just repeat the scoring on the second page. Score at 2 inches because that's going to be my top. And then I'm going to score 3 inches, 3 inches, whoops, and 3 inches. I will give you the measurements for the little bag when I'm done assembling this, but I think it'll make a lot of sense when I give those to you. All right, so now I've got my 2 pieces of paper here, I am going to take my paper snips and I'm just going to trim right along the score line. And usually on this inside piece, and I'm just scoring right up to this other score line here, I'm going to just nip a slight angle in here. And that just ensures that it'll fold in a little bit nicer if I do that. And I'll repeat that process over here. And I should say I found this pattern years ago when I first started with Stampin' Up. And it's by a demonstrator. The directions I followed came from a demonstrator by the name of Debbie Henderson. And she still is an active demonstrator. I did double check on that, so I will give credit where credit is due. And then I am going to come over to my second page, and this is the one where I'm going to cut my squares out. Now, the one thing I will say when you're cutting, if you're mass producing these bags, is do one sheet, all of your sheets like this before you hop over to the second set of paper, second page, where you're going to cut the corners out. Because if you don't do that, chances are good that you're going to inadvertently cut corners off of a piece that you didn't mean to. So kind of keep those 2 pieces a little bit separate, just so that you are sure you're doing the right cut on the right piece of paper, if that makes sense. Okay, so I can set those aside. Now, the next step that I like to do right away is fold this flap down. And I'll show you real quick why I choose to do it this way. If I can find my adhesive. There we go. You want to make sure you do get it right up to the, kind of next to the score line here. And then I just run a second piece along the top of my paper, and then I bring it down and I make sure it's adhered, and then I do drag my bone folder across it just to make sure I'm getting a good tight fold over on that. And I will repeat that step on this piece of paper as well. So again, I'm going to just take my adhesive and run it like this. And fold this flap over. And then drag my bone folder across to get it to adhere. And then the reason I like to fold this over is the next step of this is we're going to be folding along all the score lines. And it's just easier to score it, or to burnish the fold if that flap is already down. Plus, it gives you a chance to make sure that the top of your bag lines up nicely. Every once in a while your fold might be off just a little bit, so you can kind of help it along if you need to when you're making this particular fold into the bag. So see, that one's down just a titch, so I'm going to just kind of pull it up a little bit, and I'll run my finger down, and now the tops match up. And then this flap will become part of the bottom of the bag, so I'm also going to burnish that. Whenever you're doing 3D bags like this, you do want to make sure you're burnishing your fold lines really well, your score lines, because the crisp folds are going to be important to making the project look nice and crisp when it's done. Okay, so we're going to fold these over and again burnish them, double checking that the bag top lines up pretty evenly. Okay, and then if you remember on my little cheat sheet for this page, we need to put adhesive on these 2 pieces on the back side. So we're going to run adhesive here, here, and here. Excuse me. Here, 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 and here. Sorry about that. And I do like to use the tear and tape for this just because it gives us a slightly longer or a stronger bond than just the straight, oops, that'd be dog hair. It gives a slightly stronger hold than just straight adhesive. Now the tear and tape is retiring and is currently on the clearance list or the last chance list for retiring items, and once it is sold out it will not be available anymore. So if tear and tape is something that you like, make sure that you get your order submitted for that before we run out. And then again, I'm going to run 2 pieces of tape here, and this one you do want to get fairly close to the edge as well as fairly close to the top here, and that just will give you a good tight folds on your card on the edges. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that same taping process on this side. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tape the second piece of paper too, so that when I start assembling it'll be all ready to go. And this one, we just need to put 2 pieces of tape actually on this side, because this is where I was going to fold my flap down. So our 2 pieces of tape are going to go here And if you accidentally put your tape on the wrong side, it's pretty forgiving in terms of how you assemble. So you should be able to just adjust how your flaps go in and make the tape that you've got work anyhow. All right, so now we've got our pieces all taped together. So the first thing that I like to do is bring in the little flaps here. And so what I do is I peel off my tape, and I do one side at a time because otherwise I end up getting the stuff sticking all over the place. And I just line it up, kind of put my fold just, or my flap just to the inside of the score line. And then I want to make sure that I'm getting my bottom even with the bottom of the bag with the bottom of this side piece. And then I just rub it in. You can take your bone folder and kind of rub it in. And repeat that same process on this side of the bag. Okay. And so again, you're going to kind of bring it in just to the inside of that score line. Bring your flap up, making sure that these two edges are pretty flush. If they end up being a little off, it's not a big deal. You can just take your paper snips and trim them. Okay, so here's one half of my bag all made. And now what we're going to do is insert this piece to this piece. And so the easiest way to do this is you're going to have your adhesive on this flap. Go ahead and peel your backing off. And then I stand up this bag so that I've got this flap, and I'm going to just slide this piece right in there. Now I'm holding it up so it's not flat against there because I want to make sure I get it lined up before any of my adhesive hits the bag. But once I have it lined up inside here, I'm just going to press it in and run my bone folder over that. And then it leaves me with these two pieces that I need to adhere. So I'm going to pull off these two pieces of tape. And again, I always only am working with one side at a time. And you want to make sure that the top of your bag lines up. It's more important that that lines up nicely than the bottom of the bag because that's kind of the focal point, is the top of the bag. So once I have them adhered, again, I use my hand to kind of press stuff down. But then I will take my bone folder and just rub it across there too to make sure I've got a good tight connection. And then you repeat the process on this side of your bag. Adhesive is coming off a little bit there. All right. This side is a little bit easier because the bag kind of naturally wants to go this direction now. And so I just make sure I've got my top pieces lined up, and then we'll adhere it. So there you go. That's how easy it is to make this bag. You can just take and pinch it in. So just kind of push in these pieces, and then you get, if you pop that in a little bit, you get kind of the semi-closure like that. And then I have a tool that is a long ago retired tool, and it's one that I'm never going to get rid of because I really, really like it. And I do use it a lot. And so if you wanted to add a ribbon like I did here or here, I just take out my crocodile and I know how far in I want it to go. You can set up the guide so that you only go so far on that. I usually just line mine up so that I'm punching a hole just to the left of where I've got the indentation, because that allows me to kind of have something to guide off of for both sides. And I punch through, and then I will repeat that on this side of it. And I eyeball it. It's not perfect, but that gives me my holes then that are fairly lined up. And then you can just run your ribbon through however you want. I have seen some people go across so that the bag kind of closes with the ribbon. I like to do it on either side so that I can always have my bag open. So really quick, great way to use up your designer series paper. Here's my 2 12x12 bags. And again, I love how it allows us to see both sides of the paper and get that contrast. So many of our papers right now, the patterns on the opposite sides work really well with each other, and so we can quickly fold it down. So again, on this large bag, 2 12x12 pieces of paper, score at 2 inches on the top, what will be the top of your bag, and then 3 inches on the other side. So we've got 12x12 paper. As I said, these were made with 6x6 paper, which is half the size of a 12x12, or actually a fourth of the size. I can do my math here. So instead of doing the 2 inches and 3 inches, we're going to cut it in half, because our paper is basically half the size of where we were before. So you're going to score it at 1 inch on the top and 1.5 inches on the other 3 sides. And that's all. That's the only difference between this size bag and this size bag. So this is scored 2, 3, 3, and 3 on your 12x12 paper, and this is scored at 1 inch, 1.5, 1.5, and 1.5 inches on the sides. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, make sure you're using up the pretty designer series paper that we have. I'm sure that if you're like me, you've got plenty of it in your craft space. And then make sure that you not only make these bags, but you give them to people as well. Think how nice you could put a little Mother's Day gift in here or a birthday gift. I think these little bags are perfect for holding a little treat that you could share with people at work, maybe for birthdays or something like that. If you're a demonstrator, they make good customer gifts for events that you're hosting, that type of thing too. So thank you very much for joining me for this Thursday tip. Tip of the week, use your designer series paper. Thanks everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.